protecting Main Street from Wall Street. It's time for Money Unleashed with Eric Johnson and Kyle Allyn.
You have to have a plan where you know if the market's going to go up, what happens next. And you also have to have a plan where if it doesn't go the way you think, you know what you're going to do.
It's time to put you back in control of your money.
I'm not trying to predict the weather, which is kind of what we're talking about, right? It's predicting the stock market. I'm trying to build a better boat.
This is Money Unleashed with Eric Johnson and Kyle Allyn.
Welcome to the Money Unleashed podcast with Eric Johnson and Kyle Allyn. We are the vice presidents of Hoffman Financial Group. We've got new episodes for you on Monday and Friday. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Kyle, we're going to answer a question that virtually every single person we see wants to know the answer to, and it's, how's the economy? So Neil Dutta, he's the head of U.S. economics. He does economic research efforts. He analyzes global trends, cross-market investment themes. So Neil worked at Renmac, he worked at Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, he had responsibilities in the United States and Canada. He's basically come up with three buckets for the economy, right? And the first one is housing. The second one is labor and consumer. And then the third is AI, propping everything up. So let's kind of dive into the first one. Let's dive into housing and how that affects the economy.
Yeah, so one of the things we're looking at here is from Scott Bessent, so the Treasury Secretary, right? So I'm going to quote him a couple times. He's saying, we're in good shape, but I think that there are sectors of the economy that are in a recession, right? So that's the Treasury Secretary. One of the most important people in economic discussions would be the Treasury Secretary. But he's saying here, and he's doing his job, he's saying we're in good shape, but I think there are sectors of the economy that are in recession, right? So the Fed has caused a lot of disruption problems with their policies, right? So we know that there's this sort of battle for power between the Trump administration and the Fed, right? So that's going on. Of course, the Fed this past weekend has released, some information saying, hey, they're picking on me, they're trying to get onto me, and they're bringing the public into this, right? So we're looking at these sort of big power players, Treasury Secretary on one side, and the Trump administration, and then, of course, we've got the Fed. So to continue with Mr. Bessent, he said if the Fed brings down mortgage rates, then they can end the housing recession, right? So then you say, why is the Trump administration pushing so hard to lower rates? Well, they believe if the rates are lower, the housing market will get to moving.
Yep.
Right?
People start buying more homes because they're not paying as much in interest.
Exactly. Now, I'll say this. When I read this, I don't think most people would have acknowledged, like if I said the housing market is in a recession, would you say you agree?
I would not say it's in a recession, but I will say it's a buyer's market.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I wonder how many people would say it's in a recession. Like I said that in front of
all the realtors would tell you that.
It depends on the markets. I was talking to my realtor about this, and she said, I've done really well the last couple of years. Atlanta's doing well. So I think a lot of people in Atlanta would say the market's moving here. Mm-hmm. But overall, we're hearing from the Treasury Secretary, he feels that the housing market is in a bit of a precarious position, right? So then the other side, he's saying the Federal Reserve cut its benchmark federal rates last month for the second time this year. So a couple months ago, this data's a little old, they were cutting some rates, right? So they're pushing the Fed to cut rates. And what's interesting about this to me is it wasn't that long ago, maybe a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, you and I were on the radio talking about how rate cuts were this major thing. We're going to get lots of rate cuts. And then it kind of just fizzled out, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, we didn't get a lot of rate cuts, and then it didn't seem to matter. But there was a time when rate cuts seemed to be the most important thing on the planet. Well, when we're looking at Neil's research here, one of the things that we're looking at is the housing market. So we're saying if we could get the housing market to move stronger, we would like that. We don't love where the housing market's at now. So to me, that's one piece of the puzzle, right? So you can't just look at that one data point. I think this is something that I want to point out, which is often you'll see an article that'll say the housing market's in a recession, and then somebody will come in and say, well, I need to sell my stocks. It's like, take a pause.
Yep.
Take a pause. That guy's trying to scare you. Go see how often the writer, the author, the narrator of that story was saying something negative. One of the things that's so interesting in sort of journalistic world is you can pull up what they said before. So you go back and you see that the person that's saying doom is coming in the housing market said it 3 years ago, 8 years ago, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. They're always negative.
Yep.
Right? So as financial fiduciaries, as people who are helping manage money year in and year out, we don't get to sit on the sidelines when things are bad. We've got to manage money when things are good and bad.
And bad, yep.
So we're just saying, okay, let's take the data, let's understand it, and let's make a choice. The second thing that we're bringing up here is the labor market. So without getting too deep, so we're looking at the numbers from Q4, right? So the U.S. economy lost 105,000 jobs in October. They added 64,000 jobs in November. So the BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, reported Tuesday, this was a couple months ago, that the unemployment rate rose to a four-year high of 4.6, right? So it's saying unemployment doesn't look great, right? So these numbers are coming in from the BLS, and they're sort of saying, okay, there's some stuff here. Once again, I think you've got to take this with a grain of salt because I'm going to take you straight into that third thing, which is AI, right? We've talked about this. There's so much CapEx spending in AI that you could run 12,000 of the ChatGPT programs.
Yep.
We're also talking about the fact that we may be in the first or second inning of this development. So we live in this world where a lot of people are looking at the expansion and the growth in these technology stocks and these AI programs, and we're saying, wow, this is going to be amazing. Others are saying, well, what is the cause and effect of the amazing? What is it going to displace workers? Is it going to displace jobs? I've seen discussions from people saying, look, the Philippines' entire economy is based on these call centers. If you don't need call centers, boom, game over. So the point here is, I don't think anybody who's willing to tell the truth knows the answer of what's going to happen with AI.
Agreed.
All right?
Because they don't.
So you got to plan for both, right? You've got to build a plan that has the growth-oriented stocks, has the things that are going to allow you to make money, but you also have to learn how to hedge. So where I want to take this is instead of saying, Scott Bestnet's right, or the Fed chair is right, or this is the thing, or that's the thing, it's okay, we've got to build a plan.
It's back to the 5 Ps.
That's right. We've got to take action today. So I want you to walk me through the specific part of the plan where you protect, right? So when you build a plan, when you've figured out how to get somebody through the process and they've said, okay, I'm going to turn over my money to you, Eric, I want you to walk me through how you protect the money, right? We talk about often our system is called protection rotation.
Yes.
Take me to the P on that part.
First and foremost, when everybody comes in and they want a new plan done, they're never really excited about the defensive portion of their money. And there's a reason for that, is because most people have been in bond funds for ages, right? Like decades even. And they've been trained or conditioned to think that, okay, my defensive money can only make 1% a year, right? So it's about, having a good conversation with the people that come in and figure out what their risk tolerances are, which is our job as advisors and fiduciaries, is to find out, hey, how aggressive do we need to be? Do we want to keep the same spread in the portfolio? Figuring that out, right? Then it's about, obviously, yes, you want to make sure you have the proper equity portfolio growing your accounts, but then let's focus on how we want our defensive money to work, right? So what you're looking for are alternative vehicles, and we have a slew of them, right, that we can utilize to keep your money hedged and protected, but without the lack of performance, if that makes any sense. So and the reason why I'm explaining this to everybody is, and I know this doesn't sound sexy, but if your defensive money can actually make decent returns like 4, 5, 6%, it's a complete and utter game changer for the trajectory of your portfolio, i.e. the number that you want to look at. So if let's say you have a typical 60-40 portfolio, and let's say you make 6% on the defensive side, or even 4% on the defensive side, fine. That's going to tremendously affect how the rest of your portfolio performs. So
are you saying the first thing to protect yourself would be to make more money on the safe side?
100%.
Okay.
Everyone always focuses on the engines or the fun stuff, the stocks. Everyone understands, right? Like that's the fastest, most effective way to make money. True. But if your defensive money is pulling on the rope, rising tides lifts all ships.
Yeah, so
right?
if we put a word on it, it's efficiency.
Efficiency, correct. So that's step one, is identifying that. And then step two is, what other types of vehicles or replacements around the bond funds can we incorporate to give people these results, right? And we've got a ton of different ways that we can take that portion of the portfolio and actually supercharge it into making decent gains.
And we would say this is one of the things that makes us very different, because if you sit down with a lot of the two-name firms, the big firms, they've been around 100 years, we're not going to call out their name, but let's say some of them might have the same initials as the gentleman I'm looking at, E&J, right?
E&J, okay, I've heard of
They're
that
cookie
before.
cutter. They're saying stock, bond, mutual fund, over and over and over and over.
Sit and twist. Additionally, and here's number 3. Sorry for interrupting you, but I want to finish this point. Okay, step 1, identifying what your risk tolerances are. Step 2, identifying vehicles that can give you what you need on the defensive portion of your portfolio. And then the most important is step 3. How do we access that money, and how do we use it to cost average back into our stocks? Or how do we cost average it back into income? Or how do we throw the money back at our clients so they can go on a vacation? It's then how do we take that money and utilize it with the aggressive money to create that plan for you? It's very similar, and I know it's playoffs of NFL football, and I'm an old football player. I'm going to go back to football every time. It's like the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator, they need to talk to win the football game, right?
So here's what's interesting, because I didn't know this is the way you would take this, but I really like it. You're saying if you make more money on this one side of the portfolio, things get a lot better from a protection standpoint.
Protection standpoint, production standpoint, and capabilities of creating an income standpoint. Like, that's the difference. Everybody wants more. Every single weekend, I'm super dad. I make French toast for my girls. They never come and say, Dad, I'd like half a piece of French toast. They're like, I want 28 pieces of French toast. It's always more. So how do we make more? And everybody thinks that you've got to rip your portfolio to shreds, make all these tremendous changes in order to create the more, when in all actuality, it's just like tweaking an engine. Like, you might have a Corvette, but your spark plugs might not be firing properly, and you're not using all 8 cylinders.
And it's almost the guy I talked about before, which is if he's making a certain amount of money, he calms down, he feels like he's going to make it.
Yes.
So when you look at a lot of clients, you could argue they're sitting with firms, they're underperforming, they're inefficient, and so they start to make rash decisions.
Correct.
Right? So about making the right decision the first time, you're not making the rash decision later.
And also making sure that you're repositioning your portfolio sometimes quarterly, sometimes annually, to take advantage of what's going on in the world. Like, there are instances, like the market doesn't go up to the right all the time. Like, you don't plant a seed and a tree grows to the sun. Sometimes the market goes down. Well, how are you making money in those instances? How are you repositioning your portfolio to reflect what's actually going on? Like, a lot of these people who don't have a plan and are worried about, the geopolitics of things, how is it going to hold up to that, right? Like, you have to have a plan A, plan B, plan C in order to pivot properly to take advantage of what's going on.
And this is basically execution, right? So this is called the odd lot theory. The odd lot theory is basically taking all the trades that are happening each day, and you can see that the big institutions are trading these clean, large numbers. And then the rest of us, the retail trader, $1,000, $2,000, $10,000, $15,000, $50,000, these smaller increment trades.
Yep.
And you can put them on a dot plot, and you can look at them, and you can see that at the exact moment that people should be buying, they're selling.
Yep.
At the exact moment they should be selling, they're buying, right? So to your point, you've got to build an efficient portfolio, and then you've got to have an execution strategy to know when to buy and sell. It's not timing the market. It's not day trading the market. But there are times to sell some positions to take the gain, and there are times to ultimately buy back into positions because the market is down, right? We call this protection rotation. If you protect better, then you can rotate at the right time. And we've done this forever. People often ask, because of the new market conditions, what are the changes in the strategy? And I say the strategy has never changed. Since we opened the firm a long, long time ago, it's just me and Chris sitting there looking at each other. The strategy was to protect and rotate, protect and rotate. What are you doing this year? Protect and rotate. What are you doing next year? Protect and rotate. Over and over and over and over. That execution, like I say sometimes, Chick-fil-A continues to make chicken sandwiches because they make the best chicken sandwich.
Yep.
Okay, when you come into the Hoffman Group, we're going to protect better, and we're going to rotate into the market, and that's ultimately going to allow you to win as a client in retirement.
Yeah, and having the guide to help you with the execution is what's so critical. Money is a very emotional game, everybody. We all know this. I mean, it even happens with our own monies. And you hire us to take the emotion out of it so you can make the better decisions, so you can have the better outcome. It's all about planning, right? So we talk about proper planning prevents poor performance. Let's get this plan put into place for you now so you have the clarity and the confidence to have the retirement that you're looking for. Give us a call. Let's get one of these plans put together for you today. 404-640-5511. That's 404-640-5511, or you can find us online at unleashyourmoney.com.
Eric Johnson and Kyle Allyn are investment advisor representatives of Brookstone Wealth Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor and affiliate of Brookstone Capital Management, LLC. BWA and Hoffman Financial Group are affiliated under common ownership. Registered investment advisors and investment advisor representatives act as fiduciaries for all of our investment management clients. We have an obligation to act in the best interest of our clients and to make full disclosures of any conflicts of interest. Please refer to our firm brochure, the ADV 2A, page 4, for additional information. The Hoffman Financial Group and WSB are not affiliated. Exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed should not be considered investment advice or recommendation to buy or sell any financial vehicle. This information should not be considered tax or legal advice. Individuals should consult with a professional specializing in the field of tax, legal, accounting, or investments regarding the applicability of this information for their situation. Any client experiences discussed during the show are unique to that client. They are not meant to imply or suggest you will experience the same results. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Investments will fluctuate, and when redeemed may be worth more or less than when originally invested. Any comments regarding safe and secure products and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not refer in any way to securities or investment advisory products. Fixed insurance and annuity product guarantees are subject to the claims paying ability authority of the issuing company and are not offered by Brookstone. Index or fixed annuities are not designed for short-term investments and may be subject to caps, restrictions, fees, and surrender charges as described in the annuity contract. Please refer to our firm brochure, the ADV 2A Item 4, for additional information. Hoffman Financial Group is not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency. Insurance licensed in Georgia, number 163546.